Marco Reus. Daniel Malen! Wonderful!
Fantastic from Reus. Jude Bellingham, that's excellent. Jude Bellingham, this is absolutely brilliant. Jude Bellingham! Absolutely magnificent.
Reina, brilliant from the American. Just like that.
Graceful. Sally Hoods turn for Anthony Modeste.
Not a bad idea. And there it is for Coco for Borussia Dortmund. The long wait is over. Unbridled joy in the Adeyemi.
Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jake, joined as always by Carver. How are you doing, man? How's it going?
You know, the second we started recording, I just thought, it would be actually kind of a funny intro is like the Paul Rudd Hot Ones meme where he's like, who would have like said, look at us. Who would have thought, huh? Not me. And then just have that and then cut right into us. I mean, I'm doing great, but I mean, just like I said, who would have thought first place, tied for first place, of course, but first place nonetheless.
I mean,
I'm on cloud nine.
There's a goal differential in there.
We also have more wins than Bayern, so.
Okay. Also, when you're like, oh, who's up? I don't know if you're talking about the fact that this is kind of celebratory, episode number 50.
That was well, yeah.
I feel like we're halfway there. Not that we're gonna like do 100 and clock out. I just feel like it's a good milestone though.
It is, yeah. Again, who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Thanks for putting up with us and putting up with us enough that we've done this 50 times now. I think there's been a couple bonus episodes in there, but 50 official episodes. Yeah, pretty crazy. But we appreciate you hanging out and listening as always. I do got to give a quick shout out because last week, Carver, when I asked you, how are things going? What's going on? And then I meant to ask you about your coaching thing. And I feel like that's also a celebratory thing too. Because you posted it, your coaching achievement, accomplishment, certification on Instagram. And then I completely forgot to ask when we started recording, mainly because I was very ill prepared for the actual recording of the episode and I was scrambling. So congrats, man. I don't know if you want to tell anybody, but
no, you're good. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I just posted it to a private account where I just have a handful of close people to me on Instagram. Some would call that a Finsta, if you will. But I just posted on there the U.S. soccer coaching pathway. I started that a few years back and I got another certification. So just climbing the ladder, learning as I go. It's been a blast. It's a little expensivo if anyone's interested in that. The first few licenses aren't that bad, but once you get up there, it gets real pricey real quick. So I'm just taking things in stride and enjoying the process.
No, super exciting. And congrats again. It's awesome.
Thank you.
So we should probably just jump right in this episode. Opposed to last time where it'd been a while since we recorded. I feel like we recorded not too long ago because we did an episode later in the week. Now we're right back to it, recording on Monday night, the day after Hertha Berlin. And I did watch this game. I'm prepared. I didn't take a lot of notes, but I did get my 4-1. I predicted last week a 4-1 win. That's exactly what we got. People were doubting it. People were doubting Brandt.
I was doubting it. Not Brandt, but I was doubting the scoreline. I had a 3-1, and I remember I told you that let's bring it back down to earth a little bit. I don't know if we can get 4, but
no, I love it.
Am I happy to be proven wrong?
The commentators were trying to put the commentator curse on Brandt, saying, "Oh, can he go 3? I think it's 3-3 is what they were saying," and then he scored 90th minute. So great win for Dortmund. I love those blacked out kits. It's awesome. And I just love that this is the 4th kit that Dortmund released this year, and they did it right in the midst. I'm sure they probably don't care about MLS at all, but this was right in the midst of every MLS team is releasing their kits, and then Dortmund just comes in with this one how about our 4th kit of the year?
Yeah. Sold funny. Out in 3 minutes, if I'm not wrong, over 300,000 products, and they're going to make more. Of course, it goes on sale at 2 or 3 a.m. here in the U.S., depending where you live. So I got up at 7 and I checked and I was 32,000 in line. So I was like, yeah, you know what? Gosh. Maybe I'll just see what's up. I guarantee I'm not going to get one, but either way, very cool to see them, of course.
Yeah. I don't know if any of them are going to make their way to the U.S. if you can get them in any stores over here, but it'd be nice.
If any one of any listeners on the show have one, please tweet at us or post at us. It'd be cool to see. I want to see who's able to get their hands on some. So But either way, yeah, it looked awesome.
So I will ask I know that it's like a special thing. Like, what is it for something specifically? Do you know?
It's just to kind of, I mean, I don't know if it's on this specific date, and I probably should know that, but I do know it's a reference back to the core, I don't want to say values, but like just the history of the city being like a mining city and very post-industrial now, similar to St. Louis. So they were just sort of celebrating the history of the city. But on this date or year specifically, I couldn't tell you.
Okay,
at least not at the top of my head.
No, it's just kind of, I don't know, to any other, not saying I'm a new soccer fan, but newer fans coming into it. It's like, why did they drop a fourth jersey? Like, and I know there's some stuff like pregame stuff before the match, but it was all kind of in German, so I didn't really know what was going on. But either way, they're awesome. They're really cool, and I need one, but it's probably not going to happen. Not anytime soon, at least. But let's jump right into the match. And the lineup read Kobel in goal. We had Wolf at right back, Hummels and Schlotterbeck, our two center backs, and Rierson out on the left again. Then we also had Özcan, Chan, and Royce, Adeyemi, Brandt, and Mullins. So we did see quite a bit of changes. We did see some guys get some rest. I was kind of surprised to see Mullin up top as a striker, and I think there's some things we can debate a little bit later when we talk about his goal.
I was thinking the exact same thing, and I think pretty much everyone had a slight eyebrow raised. But at the same time, if there's probably any game that you would play him in the next like 2 months, this would be it. At home, you have these kits that, I mean, whether or not it's superstition, it gives the team a bit of a boost. It gives the atmosphere a bit of a boost. So I think this might be the time to maybe get him in, try to get some confidence. But yeah, when I did see him on there, I was like, even though I was kind of thinking this might happen, let's hope that he can actually produce, that we don't have to rely on the 65th minute bailing out or having our subs bail us out.
Was there any other surprises in that lineup? So the big things, we saw Bellingham come out to get a rest, which makes sense. He's one of our most important players. He plays all the time. So even though he's young, it's good to give him some rest. We did see him come in later in the game. And then I guess Haller was the other one that was rested. But did you have any thoughts or notes?
The only other thing was Dahoud not starting. That one was a little concerning, and we'll talk more about him later. But I thought, again, that would have been another player I think that should have definitely gotten a start, given it was a bit difficult to break down Berlin, and with the intensity that they came out with right out of the gates, I feel like Dahoud could have helped control that midfield a little bit better, ping some passes. So that was also a little bit of a surprise. But everything else, I totally understand the rotation. These next 2 weeks of having one game a week, basically, is extremely vital.
What are your thoughts on this Guerrero, Rierson, and Wolf? I don't want to say situation. I mean, I've made my thoughts clear with Guerrero before. I'm kind of ready to move on. Do you think, is this like a rest for Guerrero? Is Rierson the number one fullback on either side? I don't understand why, because Guerrero has played a couple good games lately after a couple of quite a few stinkers. So it looks like is it Wolf, our number one right back? I know we've talked about this, our fullbacks before. I guess my question is if Meunier is fit and healthy and comes back, is Rierson going to start in the left? We just signed him as a right back. Obviously he's multifaceted. He can do both sides, but that's what I'm why aren't we playing Guerrero, and why is Rierson going out on the left, I guess?
Yeah, so we've touched on this a bit these past few weeks, but it's just a combination of a few things. One, I mean, Guerrero's contract is obviously up at the end of the summer, and I think we might just be trying to implement something new into the team, get a head start for maybe trying to mold a squad together. But also Rierson, again, he brings the grit that Guerrero doesn't really have. He brings the defensive IQ. He doesn't get lost in defense. He can track back, yada, yada. And in this game, again, you also get to see a little bit of shithousery with him as well against Berlin. I mean, I can't praise the man enough. I think it was a brilliant signing, again, for an absolute bargain from a top club in Germany. He's only 25, if I'm not wrong. So he's here for the long haul. Very impressed with his performance this game as well. But the game started with the smoke bomb, obviously. Yeah. And I think that kind of sucked a little bit of our momentum out of the game, unfortunately. It took at least 3 or 4 minutes or so for the field to actually clear and you could see what was going on. Yeah. So I think that was definitely a factor, but also on top of that, Berlin were just really coming out and trying to force us to make mistakes early, bring the intensity, press really high, and try to bag one early and then smash and grab and then sit back for the rest of the game. And respect to them, because I think they played relatively well. I feel like if they weren't playing, or if they were playing any other club in the league, like outside of like the top 4 or something, they could have easily gotten a result. So all credit to them, but we still were creating our own problems. I mean, they did force some mistakes out of us. Wolf gave the ball away a few times, but it wasn't just exclusive to him. I think we had a handful of players lose possession pretty early, and it was just hard to get our attack involved. It was hard to do any sort of build up. I mean, Berlin were just not really letting us play at all, but when you have players of such quality in Dortmund, you can kind of play through that at times and rely at times on individual brilliance, which I don't think is what bailed us out, but it definitely helped.
And I think what you saw, especially in like the first goal and then like some of the other goals too, it's like we got to see, saw a little more like counterattacking, which we have seen, like we see that from time, like we see that occasionally. It's not like we're a counterattacking team, but we can do it so well. So we saw the counterattack, but also just we used to talk about it all the time, the quick 1-2 passes and just the quick play and knowing where each other are and be able to move the ball in tight spaces and up the pitch quickly with those quick 1-2 passes, which I think that's how we got the first goal. Like it started kind of in the middle with these quick 1-2s, then Royce broke away.
Yeah, it started with Royce and Brandt, if I'm not wrong. Or it was either first or second goal when he had the nutmeg. That might have been the second goal, but either way, it was through the center of the park on both of those. Yep. And it was just real quick, 2 or 3 one-touch passing and letting the ball do the work. And it played right around Berlin, which, it goes back to that quality. And I think Royce is very, very pivotal in that sense of the kind of role that he's taking on in the last 2 or 3 years as he adjusts his game as he gets older. He's dropping a little bit deeper now. He's playing a little bit more central rather than on the wing. He's helping and build up. He's tracking back in defense. He's making tackles. And, combine that with other players around him that have that kind of talent to play those quick 1-2 passes, Bellingham, Brandt. I mean, Dahoud wasn't playing this game, but a player like Dahoud, you can cut through teams like butter. And that's how we got the first goal and second goal.
Mm-hmm. So on Royce real quickly, there's been, obviously he was injured for a time, but there's also been some like talk and discussion on Twitter. And I feel like I don't know what's real on Twitter. That's what Twitter is. But even stuff like comments from Terzic, which are saying like he still has to earn it. And like, which I get. And if the team's firing, it's like, where are they going to slot in? We talked about that with Stefan a couple weeks ago too. Like if Royce is coming in, like, are you really taking Brain out? Like, what's the option here? But this game, with all that said, and questions and anything up in the air with Royce, I feel like he had a great game, and he looked like he was like had something to prove almost. So maybe there is some truth to some of these comments, but it worked. Like he looked fired up. He's working hard, and it was great to see him out there again. And that pass to Adeyemi and the goal was just like incredible. But that pass was like, I don't even know how he saw Adeyemi over there. It looked like he wasn't even like, it was almost like a no look pass, and he like got it through the defense. And then the finish by Adeyemi was just incredible. But great to see Royce firing and fired up and kind of just back to doing Royce things.
Yeah, especially his free kick. And we'll get to that. But I mean, yeah, going back to Adeyemi, how important is he right now? We talked about him last week as well of, in my opinion, he's the top 3 best players in this squad in this calendar year, and gets a goal and an assist in just what was that, 35 minutes? And I mean, the kid's on fire at the moment. He can do no wrong. I think you said Brandt has 3 and 3, or that's what the commentators was talking about, at least in the league. But Adeyemi is the same way.
They said he's never gotten 3 and 3. He's never gotten 3 games in a row and scored in each one.
Gotcha. Well, Adeyemi's the same way. I mean, he's got 3 goals in his last 3 Bundesliga games, but also 4 goals in his last 4 games in all comps, including Champions League. So, I mean, not to mention an assist as well. So I think he's really starting to fulfill his role in this team, Adeyemi, especially with, the switch of play and him playing on the left-hand side, which I think a lot of people were originally thinking it was either going to be down center or down the center of the park, or maybe on the right, and kind of cut in. But he looks like he's playing on that left. And I mean, even before the goal and the assist, he's so brilliant at drawing those fouls in the final third. I mean, he was the most fouled player against Freiburg. Picked up a few this game too. I saw Zaheen reply to one of our tweets, and he said he's slowly replacing Bellingham as the most fouled player. And I was like, honestly, it's not a bad shout. I can definitely see them two competing for it, at least in the next year, if it's not too late for Adeyemi already. But wow, I mean, he has arrived.
Yeah, I mean, that was the title of our episode last week. And I was very happy to see him just like keep doing it in this game. Unfortunately, he did go out. He ran too. Is it that he's too fast? Like his body can't handle how fast he is. But I do want to talk about the second. He obviously scored that first goal, but the second goal that he created, he set up. It was kind of like the goal against Chelsea, like him breaking away, just using his pace and speed. And then when you see the replay, what blew my mind is like you see him pull up, like you see him grab his leg, his hamstring, and then he still gets the pass off with that leg.
Like the second the ball leaves his foot, he doesn't even really look at the play anymore. He just immediately goes to the ground and doesn't even know that. I mean, obviously you can hear, but he doesn't see that Malen scores it. And yeah, that was really it. I didn't see that until the camera cut back to him. I had no idea that he was injured. My eyes were immediately on to Malen, like, for God's sake, please finish this.
Yeah, I didn't know he was injured either. But then you also see the replay in slow-mo where he's running with the ball. You see his leg tighten up or whatever. Like he grabs his butt and then still like gets the pass away. It's just like incredible. So I did see the tweet today that for the update on him, it looks like he had a torn muscle fiber, which to me sounds like it's not doing your hammy completely. Like just one fiber doesn't seem as bad as like your full like blowing out your full hamstring.
Yeah. And that same hand motion you just did was actually, he was doing that when he came back on the field earlier, or kind of towards the end of the game. He went to the bench, and I think he was talking to some of the staff, and he was giving that like sort of little, and then he was kind of smiling, looking like he was saying, it was all right. But we got the confirmation today that from the BVB Twitter account saying that it's going to be about 3 weeks, which in Dortmund time, that's about 3 years.
Yeah. And it's so frustrating. Like he was in such good spirits after the game, and then he put out a tweet after the game. Obviously, we got the official news today, but even like when it happened, and I think seeing him like on the bench and everything, I was like, man, I'm not as worried, but it is unfortunate. He's not going to be out for like a couple months, hopefully, if everything goes well. Like it looked like it could have been a lot worse than what it is. Hopefully, it is 3 weeks, but it's such terrible timing. Like it's. Like I'm kind of lighthearted about it, but I don't know, maybe it hasn't fully sunken in. I don't know why, but we're really going to be missing him next week, because he's been so valuable, so important. And like it feels like what he's been doing, like he finally figured out his role and like how to be dangerous and deadly.
Right when he starts, or the wheels start turning, and he's molding himself well into his game. That's whenever the speed bump comes, and he has got a setback here. So it's really annoying. In the injury list, kind of, you're starting to do a little glance over your shoulder, like, oh shit.
Because we've been talking about we have the depth, and we're healthy, so we have these options. And that's why guys are playing better, because like there's actual competition, and again, he's been like our most important player, maybe the last few games when it comes to the results. He's been the game changer, and now he's out for hopefully only a few weeks. I do want to talk about Malen briefly, because I think after he gets this goal, playing in the striker position, there could be the argument. It's like, well, maybe he'd be scoring more if we were playing him as a real striker, which people would argue that he is a striker and not a winger.
I don't know. I'm not trying to sound unfair, because yes, we have tried to play him in a lot of different positions that maybe he doesn't flourish in, but he's also had more than enough time to do the things that he should be doing. And yeah, I mean, he of course, he was a good finish from whenever Adeyemi got that across the goal. It was a good finish from Malen to keep it low, just get it in the net. And he had a few nice flicks here and there, and good turns, and some dummies. But that's like, take away the goal, and that's kind of really all he's brought in this last calendar year. And I personally just don't think that's enough. It's flashy, it's fun to watch, I guess, for those 6 seconds every 6 months that he can produce. But are you actually contributing to the team? Are you banging in goals? Are you having these assists? He did have a nice pass towards the end, and I forget, it might have been JBG that had a poor finish, but he did have like one nice pass towards the end. But I just don't think he's really been producing that stuff, even on a semi-consistent basis. So not enough for me personally.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that he should be our striker.
Yeah, I know.
If he's a, I just want to explain to everybody.
and don't get me wrong,
that
he's still extremely. I don't want to put him down too much. He's still extremely important for this title race. I mean, we are officially in the title race, and you need depth, especially in attacking areas right now. If players like Adeyemi are pick up knocks, and I mean Royce is injury prone. You can go down the list. So I mean Malin's relevance is still obviously here, and he's still pretty important in the squad for games like this, of course. I mean, lower relegation sides or relegation threatening sides are usually the games that trip us up come the end of the season. I mean, look back in August. So, I mean, Werder Bremen, not this season, of course, they're exceeding expectations, but still other teams, you look back and like, well, that was an easy 6 points, or that was an easy 3 or whatever points, and we'd be right back in it. So, I mean, he helped us get the win for sure. I mean, but I want to talk about a few other goals. I mean, of course, Adeyemi's flick, we didn't talk too much about that, but his goal was also very nice. It was a cheeky little touch. I thought he was offside initially, but he did a great job of staying on. You have Malin's goal, and then come late second half, you have Royce's free kick. Could you smell that in the air? Like right when they drew that foul, I was like, "Oh man, it smells like a king is arriving."
As soon as when they were lining up, and I mean, there was something about, I don't know, was this the Schlotterbeck going and moving the guys? Was this a whole setup? Like, was that a ploy? And now, because we've talked about, like, we've been better on set pieces, and we've been like with the new assistant, maybe he's like tweaking some things and doing stuff, because we have been better on set pieces. And I'm like, was that a plan? Granted, it still takes an incredible strike from Royce, but that's Royce being Royce. But it's like, did that adjustment throw the keeper off enough to not be in the right position? And I just need to know if, like, was that a genius move? Because we know Schlotterbeck's not going to get up there and take the free kick, right, over Royce, but he goes up and moves Bellingham, and like, was it Bellingham and Chan? I don't remember the two guys on the wall.
Yeah, it was at least Chan. It might have been Bellingham though. Yeah,
like physically moves them and adjusts them, and I'm like, what is going on? And then, like, I think it was a little bit of shithousery to throw him off even more. And it's like, no, Royce is just going to bang this in. It was a great free kick. And
yeah, of course, it also like blocks the view of the keeper. But even if he had full view of that, I don't think there's many keepers in the world that would save that. I mean, that's just a world-class strike from a world-class player right there. And I mean, Royce just picking up the pieces, really. He did great this game, but we already mentioned him, of course, but I just wanted to talk about that free kick. It was a great goal. And then come the end of the game, of course, you have one more. I was kind of like mentally checked out at this point. I didn't think we were going to net another, but it was a great goal. You have Jamie Bino-Gittens coming in. It was a brilliant dribble from him. I think that was one of the best dribbles we've seen from him in a Dortmund kit. Not only to get around, I forgot who that was initially. The name is escaping me. It might have been Richter or Trussard, I forget. But he went around him, and then instead of kind of trying to do that same thing, he used that, it looks so simple on camera, but it's incredibly difficult. With this quick burst of speed, he goes straight forward again to his left, and that kind of opens up a little bit more space right on top of the box. And then it's just a beautiful layoff for Brandt to finish. And, Jamie getting involved on the goals, Brandt scoring another one. What a way to end the game, really.
Mm-hmm. Man, something about Jamie Bino-Gittens. I've obviously been a fan, and I shout him out a lot, but it also feels like he's had this, like, I've arrived too. Like he's arriving, or he is arriving. Obviously we've seen him score some goals, but I remember the first game we saw him in, like, we saw a lot of those like runs where he was trying to cut and go past guys, and he would do it occasionally, but most times he was getting caught up. Like he was trying to catch up with the pace of the first team. But now we're seeing it like consistently. It's like he knows how to beat players. Like he knows what to do, how to get around guys. And we saw a lot of those good runs, a couple chances where he cut in and got a shot off. The shot ended up not being great, but those are where we've seen him score before. Mm-hmm. And in other moments where, because I remember the goal early on in the season, I think it was against Freiburg where the keeper bobbled it, but it was that same cut in. And then we saw that cut a couple games ago when he scored. And he did it again this time, but now it's not even like I expect him to. Before it's like, oh wow, that's great. I can't believe he pulled that off. But now it's like, no, I expect him to do that. I expect him to put a shot on target. And there was another shot, like I know he blasted one way wide, but they did it again where it ended up being a good save by the keeper. But like this is his game, like, and he's figured it out. And maybe he hasn't arrived yet, but he's arriving, I feel.
I was going to say he's figuring it out. I don't know if he's figured it out per se. I mean, if you look at his dribbles, and you mentioned already, it's not like he's, completing these dribbles every single time. His success rate is only 30% at the moment this season for dribbles. But I mean, he's taking people on. He's never afraid to do that. Of course, he's got his lightning speed. When he has his feet under him and, the ball under control, he can do magic with it. Of course, it's just, a lot of times he can like kind of overstep and the ball's behind him and he's kind of losing sense of where he is with the ball around the field and his awareness isn't the best. But this is a great display of showing what he can be and what he is definitely molding himself to, and the kind of player for him to be. And it was a great assist. It was a great goal. And 4-1 win. Jake, you called it. This was a huge win, man. A must win for title aspirations if you're, trying to get into that race. I said before that these lower table sides can usually trip us up. And credit to Hertha for trying to, press us pretty much all game with their intensity. But I mean, just pulling out the win, getting to the top of the table. This was a nice weekend, and no one would have ever, including myself, no one predicted this sort of a turnaround. I mean, even if like my most optimistic self in December, when we were talking about like, what do we want to see second half of the season? I was just kind of talking a little bit about like stability and hoping to get people back to full fitness. I was hoping out of these 8 games, we won like 6 and like maybe lost 1 or 2. And like, that was me like thinking like, if we really turn things around, but like, man, we won all 8 games in all 3 competitions. That was beyond my dreams a bit.
I remember doing our midseason review, and I remember it we kind of did one with, I think we had Adam on and Brian. I don't remember who we were talking to, but
we did. I
remember
forums.
You specifically said, like you're like best case scenario, we're going to get 4th.
I think best case. I said I was going to predict we were going to get 3rd. Which
maybe we'll get 3rd.
I mean, I guess it still could happen. We also have a very real shot at coming to 1st. And for me saying 3rd, I was like, well, that's just us slowly climbing the table over the next 3 or 4 months. But here we are already, just really 1 month into it, just 1. Because remember, the Bundesliga started back up at the end of January, so this was a bit of a dream come true.
Yeah, I do need to mention real quick. We don't need to talk about it in depth, but before we kind of move on a little bit, and obviously they scored, so we didn't come out in the second half. We weren't great coming out in the second half. They also just came out like firing.
It was 2 games in a row now where we really kind of had a bit of a stinker of a second half. This and Chelsea, which is again usually the kind of opposite. But sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, not like we have been starting games better for the most part, and our like intensity and pressure has been there. But this is where, yeah, you can see maybe we slip up a bit. Obviously we were able to turn it around. We like kept our heads, and like it was a pretty bad stretch. Like, was it like 20 minutes like that? When did we finally score again? But
it was in the 27th minute when we got our first goal.
No, I mean in the second half. I don't know.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. It was 76. So pretty late in the day. Yeah.
Like
it was nervy. I mean, especially when Adeyemi came off. We just couldn't really try to figure out how we're going to attack. Now that you have, Malen being up top as your striker, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, let's look on the wings. Then Adeyemi came off with an injury, and you're like, oh, all right. So we just kind of hard to get our attacks flowing.
But yeah, a little nervy. Second half, we were able to move on though, get that 3rd goal, and then the 4th one, obviously, in the 90th minute. But so we had it in our notes talking about Dahoud, and I'll just let you go here. I know you had some things you want to say.
I'd love to talk about that because I know that was next on the notes, but I do want to say also, I forgot to shout out Kobel. He had 8 saves this game and deserved a clean sheet. The man's the GOAT.
I mean, he's Kobel.
He's Kobel, of course. Yeah. So anyway, this morning, got some rough news for Dahoud fans, including myself here. This was confirmed by Bild, but also tweeted by Fabrizio Romano. So BVB and Dahoud will part their separate ways here in the summer. Sporting director Sebastian Kehl confirms with a quote, "I had a very open and honest conversation with Mo last week. I informed him that we would not be extending his contract this summer," which kind of sucks. But you could also kind of sense it in the air as well. I mean, of course, him not starting against Berlin, that was pretty eyebrow raising. And then, of course, last week, literally just last week on the show, I was saying, hey, if we're going to slowly keep maybe edging towards this 4-1-4-1 formation or 4-5-1 formation, you're going to need another pure number 6 at the moment because you have Chan, and that's kind of it. And you have, of course, Dahoud, but he's more of a deep-lying playmaker at best, but I would argue more of just like a center midfielder. And then Özcan, same kind of way. So I think the team's just kind of heading in that direction of, it's been a nice 6 years, and you had a redemption arc, that's for sure, but we're going to look for a number 6 going forward, and best of luck to you. So that kind of sucks to see, but it'll be interesting to see where he lands. He deserves all the best. I think there's a handful of great clubs that could really use a number 8 right now that can do what Mo does.
I wouldn't be surprised if he stays in the Bundesliga, just goes to another team. And it's going to be one of those things where I'm just sad to see him with another team, and it's going to be weird. I'm not going to like it. But that's all I got to say. He's a player. Although I know I haven't been a Dortmund fan for years and years and years, but he was a player that I think I liked immediately, like just his style and how he plays and everything. So it is a bit of a bummer, especially since it's a bad way to end when it's like he was injured for so long, and then it's like we just haven't seen him, and it's like we haven't seen that Dahoud that you probably fell in love with. We just haven't seen that in so long. I remember that I don't remember who we played, but it was we had the 3-2 comeback win. He scored that banger from way outside the box to give us the win, and it was just
Frankfurt.
Was it Frankfurt last season?
It was.
Ugh.
I left the Amsterdam Tavern at halftime at that game. I was like, oh, this ain't good. I went back and watched the second half at my place, but I was like, wow, yeah, that was quite the strike from Dahoud. But you know what? Just like Malen, and more important in my opinion, this player is still definitely has a role these next few months. Again, every single player in the squad right now is vital going forward if we're actually looking to contend for this title, especially in the DM position. It's not Dahoud's natural role, but he can sure as hell play that if needed. So,
do you think we'll see him though? Like, because we haven't. So where does he slot in? Even as a sub, we haven't seen that.
I thought this would be the game to do it, but if you're looking at these next few weeks, this week off, crucial for rest, of course. And then after that, you have another week off, and it's Leipzig after Hoffenheim. But then you get right back into the thick fixtures, and they're all tough. You have 3 days after Leipzig, you have Chelsea away. Few days after that, away at Schalke. And then one more week after that, you have Köln, and then it's Bayern. And then a few days after that, you have Leipzig. So, that's like all these games are vital. You have local rivals, you have title games, you have Champions League, you have Pokal. Dahoud's going to play. There's no way he doesn't unless something happened that we're unaware of. But, he looks like he's got a pretty decent relationship with Terzic to actually have some minutes here and there if needed.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't want him to play, or that's not what I'm saying at all. It's just because we haven't, I'm like, it seems like they're just kind of operating without him, which is, I don't know, why not use an asset? And it would just seem weird that they're already, maybe he's not in the plans for next season, but he's still here and he can still be an asset. So why not? And I just don't know why we haven't seen him. So that's the only hesitation. I'm like, well, maybe they aren't going to play. Maybe they're just going to roll with Bellingham, Chan, and Özcan. I don't know.
Either way, big F in the chat. It sucks to see him go. But okay, let's get into Hoffenheim and then we'll get out of here. Hoffenheim, very disappointing this year. Sit just outside the relegation zone, excuse me. They're tied on points with Bochum just below them. There's actually 3 teams, just like at the top, there's 3 teams that are tied for first. And there's also 3 teams tied for the playoff spot for the relegation battle in Augsburg, Stuttgart, and Hoffenheim. So all 3 of them have 19 points, right? Yeah. I did not know that, or I didn't really pay attention to Hoffenheim much, I guess, these past few weeks, but not only have they lost 5 of their last 5 competitive games in the Pokal and the league, they're winless this calendar year, and they haven't won a Bundesliga game since October. And on the other side of that coin, you have a team like Dortmund who are flying right now. Obviously, the complete opposite, have won every single game this calendar year. I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm interested to see in this game. I'm curious to see how Ryerson, if he does play on the right, will defend against Angelino. A lot of Hoffenheim's attacking threat comes from the wing and specifically his side of the pitch, where he's whipping in crosses. So I think Ryerson's going to have quite the job on his hands, but it'll be a good test for him. I'm interested to see how he can perform against him. Of course, you have the American coach just recently hired at Hoffenheim, Matarazzo. So I'd like to see his kind of style of football at Hoffenheim. Nevertheless, do you have any thoughts, or?
I don't want to be a person who just like hates on players or anything, but there's just something I've never liked about Angelino. maybe it's him being at Leipzig, but it's just, maybe it's the hair. But I'm like, man, that dude just like, he's got one of those faces that I want to punch. And I'm just like, when you're reading off how well they're performing this year, I'm like, man, sorry, Angelino, sucks to suck.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I don't know why I have this vendetta against him, but I don't like him.
Yeah. The only few people I care about at Hoffenheim, of course, you have Delaney, who just signed. I mean, I like seeing American coaches succeed in Europe.
Yeah.
Or at least just outside of the US in general, because we're desperate for a coach right now in this country. So, I mean, I'm not rooting for Hoffenheim, but I am rooting for Matarazzo. And then, of course, you have John Brooks, too, that was just picked up as well in recent weeks. He played, what was it? He didn't even start, but he just played 2 games, and it was 3 minutes in total at his very, very short spell in Benfica. But he really hasn't played much of any competitive football in almost a calendar year now. So he's getting back into the swing of things. We're usually performing really well against John Brooks, too, in his time at Wolfsburg. So it's going to be away at home. It's going to be tough because Hoffenheim usually can bag one against us, some sort of long shot or header or whatever. But I am still feeling just very confident. Again, relegation battling side, I think we're got a lot of depth here, a lot of momentum with us. I think we're going to pull off a 3-1 this time. No, I'm going to say 2-0 us.
2-0? Okay.
Clean sheet. Kobo clean sheet.
I was going to go 3-1. Before you even said 3-1. Do we need to start keeping track? Do we need to have
I was going to say, we've been actually nailing our predictions lately. If you go back, I called another repeat against Freiburg, and that happened. I don't know, I could be wrong on this, but I thought I called Werder Bremen, and then you called Berlin. So, I mean, we're kind of batting. I don't know. Was that I'm not good at math. Now I'm on the spot. 60%? I don't know.
Sure. I don't know. But yeah, I think we should win this. I hope last week I had some slight hesitations, but now I'm just riding so much confidence. I think we should have no problem here. Although I'm talking shit on Angelino, so who knows? He could come out and ruin it for us. Maybe that's why I don't like him, because he's probably ruined things for us from the Leipzig point of view before. Which, quick mention, we did get the draw for the quarterfinals of the Pokal. I'm going a little bit out of order here. And we do have Leipzig, so
away at Leipzig as well.
Crushing
some
Leipzig.
cans. Yeah, this past week against Berlin, and then this next week before and after Hoffenheim are crucial for rest. It's a little bit of dip in relatively easier competition before you get into the home stretch of the season. And again, I've mentioned a handful of them already, but a lot of fixtures after Hoffenheim that are must wins, that are crucial, that are huge, and a lot of different competitions. So we're here, boys. I mean, I've been a Dortmund fan for about a decade now, and there was only one other time where I actually thought we could, have a decent shot at winning the title come late February, early March. So my heart's pounding a little bit, and I'm excited.
On that note, too, this is where we'll end it. I just want to leave it on this. Carver has been saying that we're top of the league, and I'm not going to let him get away with that because goal differential says otherwise.
You mentioned that already, but then I said we already
tied for. We're not tied for first. We're still in second. We're tied on points. I'll give you that.
We're tied for first in points, and you know what? We have more wins than Bayern, so
that doesn't. Yeah, but it's the goal differential that gets you in the end.
It does count, but
with that, this weekend, Bayern Munich, who's in first, obviously Union Berlin, who are they? They're
also
now?
tied in first. Yeah.
Oh, they're not tied in first. They're third. But so these are the two where everyone's tied on 3 points. Bayern dropped points on the weekend, which was very helpful for us. And now Bayern and Union are playing this weekend. Someone's got to drop points. Great opportunity for us to actually go top of the league and be sitting pretty in first.
Great opportunity for us to bottle it. Come next week, we're just going to cry for an hour.
Yeah, that could happen too. But that's the life. That's the life of a Dortmund fan. And on that, we will wrap things up. Well, I mean, right now, I'm not, no tears in sight for the time being.
Tears of sadness, at least.
But yeah, that's it. We appreciate you hanging out and listening for 50 episodes. Thanks to all the new listeners. If you are new here, welcome. Hope you enjoyed. And if you haven't already, I'm just going to keep shouting it out. I haven't checked our ratings in a while. If you want to drop us a nice 5-star rating on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, you can leave us a little note and give us a 5-star review. If you want to leave us a mean note, we ask that you send that to us in email or DMs on Twitter and Instagram at thebvbpod. Follow us there for like live tweet alongs and just to say hi if you want to. And yeah, that's it. Carver, anything else?
That's it. Thanks for sticking with us.
We'll see you later.